My name is Kelly Dossie, and my group partners are Clara, Scott, and Lauren. And today we are going to be discussing struggle for resources in Oklahoma classrooms. So, public education is free, but no one said it was fair. As U.S. citizens, we have the right to a free education from kindergarten to 12th grade. But unfortunately, not every single district gets the same amount of budgets and fundings for their classrooms and gets the equal amount of resources. As you see on the left, there are lots of resources and toys for kids to play with and explore, lots of fun learning opportunities. And fortunately, there are lots of classrooms like that out there. But unfortunately, the picture on the right, these kids are having to use lots of resources to be able to simply just take a test, and there's limited seating, and there's lots of kids in the classroom, and there's just lots of chaos. And unfortunately, that's the case for lots of public schools, and kids are not able to get as much adequate education as the kids might have on the left, even though both schools are receiving free education and they're not getting the same resources. So, as college students, we understand the importance of experience and opportunities, and not all kids get those fair opportunities to flourish in college. And so some kids in high school, middle school, they might not be able to have the best skills to be able to flourish in college because their school district limited them to their talents and abilities that they weren't aware of to be able to use those skills in college. And so we need to do something in order for kids to receive fair education across Oklahoma, and to ensure that they are all getting fair opportunities to help the future generation and receive the support they deserve. And so our thesis is limited resources in Oklahoma public schools hinder students' learning, academic support, and fine art opportunities. It is essential that public schools use funds in a smart and conservative way so that students receive equitable opportunities and resources to succeed academically.
Oklahoma's public schools are facing a serious issue: a lack of government funding. For years, the state has struggled to properly fund its schools, relying too heavily on local property taxes and not enough on state support. Because of this, schools in wealthier areas tend to thrive, while those in lower income communities fall behind. This isn't a new problem, it's been going on for over a decade. But its effects are becoming more damaging every year. Larger class sizes, outdated textbooks, and loss of important programs like technology and music are all signs of systems stretching too thin. Teachers are leaving the profession faster than they could be replaced, and students are paying the price with widening achievement gaps and fewer opportunities to succeed. At its core, this is more than just an educational issue. It's about the future of Oklahoma's community and economy. When schools struggle, the entire state feels the impact.
So, before we come up with some solutions, it's really important that we go through some criteria to make sure that we have smart choices for our solutions. So, we came up with this list. The first one is that the solution needs to be effective, meaning that schools should actually be able to buy new supplies, be able to have more fine arts, students be able to get to go on field trips, just seeing that the solution actually makes a difference in the student and faculty's lives, and see that the needs are being provided and not just giving a solution and nothing really changes. So that wouldn't really be effective. And our next one is that it needs to be feasible. And so what we mean by this is that it shouldn't be very difficult. It shouldn't be very stressful and straining on parents, volunteers, staff. If it takes a lot of effort and you don't even see much of a change, it's not really worth it. And so we need to make sure it's feasible and that it's not very difficult and that it's easy to get done, it's effective. And so our next one is that it needs to be socially responsible. So in order for things to happen, in order to see a difference, the staff, the teachers, they're going to have to put in the work. Obviously, we're hoping it's not a whole lot of work, but they do need to take responsibility for the actions and promote funding, or whatever it is. And lastly, well being. So we want those resources, we want those fundings, we want children to be able to get the resources and opportunities they need, but we need to make sure that it's not stressful, overwhelming, um, or makes the process any harder. So if the staff, the teachers, the students are in a happy, healthy mood and things are going well and they're getting more resources provided to them and everyone's happy, it's not too difficult, and everyone is carrying the weight, in our opinion, that would be a really good solution. And so the solutions that we came up with was change how the funding is spent in schools and focus on important areas for education purposes. And so, what we kind of mean by this is by looking at your funding that you receive from your school and technically not receiving any more funding, but learning where the funding is going and learning how to prioritize where that money is going and what can be saved and where to splurge and where to cut back, could possibly make a big difference. Secondly, is advocate for local and state funding to increase the budget in the school. So, when faculty and principals get to go to the state board and get to talk to the superiors and request their needs and see that it really is affecting the students' education and see if they can give them more funds, which could help tremendously. And lastly is to encourage the staff and community to fundraise. And so this is a great nonprofit way to receive more funding for the school and to be able to get those resources that they need.
Changing how funding is spent in schools and focusing on important areas for educational purposes is our first solution. This can really enhance a school's funding by specifying a place for funds to be uplifted. Some advantages to this solution are that schools can get very creative with the space and resources they have in the building. Another advantage is that schools learn to budget and prioritize funding to spend money where the priority is high. This can be extremely beneficial to the schools and those who are in charge of the funding. According to the Transforming School Funding for Equity, Transparency, and Flexibility article, principals and staff have the power to choose where the money is going and make sure high needs are met and ensure students and staff are being successful. While there are many advantages, there are also disadvantages with this solution, which have a lot to do with the school and things within the school. Textbooks might be outdated, classrooms might get too big, and furniture and equipment may fall apart. According to the article Deficient Resources, there was a study that was conducted on low-income schools where they found that 23 to 33 schools lacked supplies necessary for teaching and learning. The supplies will continue to fall apart at the same rate if the money cannot keep up with the replacements.
The second solution for the problem of not enough funding for public schools is advocate for local and state funding to increase the budget of the schools. Some of the advantages of this is expanding funding allows schools better resources. They will help preserve quality teachers, and they will recover from negative budget cuts as long as the budget gets improved and the money gets passed through the government. It also promotes fairness and stability in education systems. It also, in the schools with lower income, just throughout the district, it will promote the ability for them to have quality teachers, quality resources that they might not have had in the past, especially with some textbooks, equipment for labs, and resources for the lower kind of grades that they need, sort of like hands-on working. Some disadvantages of it is how long it takes for it to pass through certain stages, how much paperwork and how much time and effort will go into it. If the funds get improved, some of like the lower income districts, they might face challenges of people not wanting to kind of improve, some teachers not wanting to teach there, some kind of uh, ensuring that they're all distributed fairly and equally. Delays is also a disadvantage with how long it will take for stuff to get through the government and how long it'll take for them to finally pass everything and get all the funding and get it to where it is in a stable state of funding, and how they're not like scrambling to pick up, how they're not in like the state of limbo sort of thing. for funding for the schools. And that is the second solution.
Encouraging the staff and community to fundraise is our final solution. Fundraising is an experience many students go through while getting their education, but there are many different types. Some advantages to this solution are that fundraising can pay for extracurricular activities that the school budget could not normally afford, which gives students a chance at experiencing the same thing as those who reside at higher income schools. Another advantage is that the fundraising can help bring the school's community together. By coming together to raise for the same cause, students as well as the community can really get a chance to connect. Our last advantage, supported by teacher giving, states that fundraising will raise awareness for those in low-income areas, specifically to those who have not experienced it. While there are advantages, there are also disadvantages to this solution. Our first disadvantage, supported by teacher giving, states that a major setback of fundraising is an intense focus on the fundraising itself, rather than focusing on the main cause for fundraising, which is getting an education. Another disadvantage is the comparison that could occur when high-income and low-income schools are both fundraising. This could be discouraging to the students in low-income areas trying to fundraise and watching the ones in the high-income school areas succeed over them. Our final disadvantage to the solution is that constant fundraising can leave the community feeling overused in order to supply resources and income to the schools.
To improve school funding efficiently, we need a clear, organized plan. The first step is for the principals and assistant principals to review all school expenses from the past year. They'll look closely at where money is being spent, identify any wasteful purchases, and highlight areas that could be improved. This process should take a couple months to complete. Next, teachers and staff will find out a form listing their most important classroom needs, things like supplies, materials, or program funding. From there, the administration can implement cost-saving strategies and relocate funds where they'll make the biggest impact. As mentioned by Y. Copra in Prep AI, whether it's Prep AI, payroll management systems, or curriculum creator software, it's imperative to choose the right solution for the school. By using smart tools and technology, schools can manage their budget more effectively and reduce unnecessary spending. We'll know this plan is working when schools start being able to afford new materials and resources that weren't possible in previous years. The changes might start small, teachers having better supplies, students going on more field trips, and textbooks being more current, but together, these steps will create a much stronger, more supportive learning environment for everyone.
The importance of this topic is to overall advocate for the students, faculty, and schools who fall short on funding, scholarships, and experiences due to a school's lack of resources and funding. Our goal was to inform the audience about the budget shortage in Oklahoma public schools, why it's happening, and what we can do to fix the problem. We would like the audience to want to advocate for fair school funding and to ensure that all students get fair opportunities in classrooms and that the staff is getting the support and income deserved. Everyone has either been to school, currently are in school, or starting soon, so why would we not want the people responsible for teaching and guiding the future generations, teaching them how the world is not to be funded and paid for their efforts?